Howdy, everybody. Welcome to Houston, Texas, where it's rainy and chilly. Today, we're going to look at some books for 3 to 5 years old based upon some guidelines that I discovered as I was doing research on the internet. It's very interesting. A lot of the guidelines are similar from toddlers on up through several grade levels, but some of them are specifically designed, are guidelines specifically for children that are 3 to 5 years old. When I say this 3 to 5 years, that's a range. It doesn't mean that 2-year-olds can't enjoy these books or 6-year-olds can't enjoy these books. But this is a focus group that they've written these books for, is this 3 to 5-year-old. If you've got a 3-year-old that's especially attentive and vocal, verbal, and she likes to be read to, then she can read a much higher level of book, probably can be read to her. All right, well, one of the guidelines is to retell fairy tales. When you pick a book out for a 3 to 5-year-old, maybe you want to find a book that you can retell that retells fairy tales. And I have one right here, and it's pretty classic, Hansel and Gretel, the story of the two little kids who almost got eaten by a witch, but got rescued in the end. This book is classic. Like I said, it's a retelling. That means it's an adaptation that's not in the original sophisticated version by the Grimm brothers, but whether it is simplified for children to understand. The pictures in it, that's a dark picture. The pictures in it, they look like watercolor to me, but I'm not sure if that's what they are. The colors are kind of muted, not real bright, but kind of muted. The only thing that I would hesitate about reading this book to a 3-year-old, or maybe even a 4-year-old, if your children have nightmares or worry about things like witches, this is the witch in this book, and she's pretty frightening. So before you read this book, you might want to discuss witches and what this lady looks like with your children. You may not want to read this to a 3-year-old or 4-year-old. This may be too scary for one of them. But anyway, it's a great story, and I'm sure that there are other versions out there that maybe have the witch that's not quite as frightening, maybe more of a caricature or a cartoon of a witch, not that really kind of overwhelmingly frightening version. Another guideline is that you have the 3 to 5-year-olds enjoy books that are rhyming and repetitive. And this particular book is a rhyming book, and it's called Wake Up Me. Whoops, which way do I go? Not that way. Wake Up Me. And Wake Up Me is exactly what it is. The little boy has had a good night's sleep, and now he's going to get up, and he's telling himself to get up. He enjoys sleeping, obviously, but he's excited about his new day. And the book is about all the things he has to do to get ready to begin his new day. The pictures are large and clear. Let's see if I can get you one. There's one there. Let's see. And here's another one. Let's see if I can get it. Right there. There he is trying to wake up. This poetry book has just a few words on each page. It's the wrong way again. A few words on each page so that it's attractive to a lot of different age groups, maybe even 2-year-olds. Here comes giggle, here comes grin. Wake up, birds. Wake up, breeze. Blow on flowers, tickle trees. Wake up, bird. Wake up, trees. Blow on flower. Whoops, didn't get that one right at all. Anyway, it's a rhyming book. It's a good book. Obviously, too hard for me to memorize. The next book is, this belongs to a school teacher. The next book is called Ivy, The Ivy. And one of the guidelines also for having books for 3 to 5 years old is that the plot is very simple. Now, some of these plots, Hansel and Gretel, that's not that simple. But the Wake Up Me is pretty simple plot. Wake me up, get me dressed, let's go. This one here, The Ivy, has probably the simplest plot I've ever seen, where words are used, and that is a little piece of ivy begins to sprout outside the fence of a little girl, and it gets bigger and bigger and bigger and begins to take over, as we all know ivy can do. And the father has to cut it down in order to protect the fence and control the ivy. And That's great. And then a short time later, the ivy sprouts again. And that's the story. Ivy sprouts, ivy dies, ivy sprouts again. Those of us that are gardeners will appreciate this book because that's the way ivy is. Anyway, and the pictures in here, find one, are very bright, and the objects are familiar, and the objects are familiar, and the words are descriptive, the verbs are descriptive. It crept up the wall. Oh, and it's got repetition too. I forgot about that. It begins to say two words, and then it would come back and says 2 words and adds 2 words, and then it adds. So it's a repetitive book, and it's really, the kids get a kick out of this. The next one is Tinker and Tom and the Star Baby. This is a fantasy, a fantastical book. This book is a sweet story about a bear and his friend Tinker and how they discovered a star baby that crash landed on Earth, and about all the fun they had and how they had to take care of it while it was there, and how they had to finally make a decision about what to do with the star baby. This is a book of hope. This is a book of love. This is a book about thinking of other people more than yourself. And this is a book about enjoying each other and enjoying each other's friendship. I would highly recommend this. The art in this is kind of dark, but very detailed. Oops, can you see it? Are very detailed. Oh, there we go. Nope, wrong way. It's very detailed. And again, it's familiar objects. And look at that little face on that star. Happy little star. So this is a good book, not a scary book. It's a dark drawing, so just be aware of that. I wouldn't necessarily get this for a 3-year-old, although it says 3 to 5 or 3 to 7 or something like that. I would not get this for a 3-year-old. I would get this for someone who's more like 5, because I think the pictures are too dark. And finally, the last one is If You Give a Mouse a Cookie. Now, this is a series of books. There's 9 books in the series. For example, if you give a mouse a cookie, and if you give a moose a muffin, if you give a dog a donut, and you can go and buy all of those in a set, or I recommend you go to your local library and find the individual ones and read those to see if you want to invest in one. This poor mouse, he gets a cookie. The guy gives him a cookie, which you never should feed your mice. But he fed the mouse, and of course the mouse wanted more. He wanted milk. And then if he had milk, he wanted a napkin. And then if he had a napkin, he needed to cut his hair because he wanted to, after he looked in the mirror wiping his mouth, he saw he needed to cut his hair. And it just goes on of things he has to do. He does some good things, and he'll do some things that are not so good. But be careful before you give a mouse a cookie, because it might end up a lot more effort than you expected. Kids love this. This book is charming. The pictures are delightful, and I highly recommend this book and the whole series. They're just fun. And I think the kids would easily memorize this. If you give a mouse a cookie, and they would understand and quickly accept the concept of what happens after what you do. If you do this, whoops, sometimes there's consequences. But don't give a mouse a cookie. Otherwise, you'll have more mice than you need. Well, that's the 5 books I've chosen for today. I'm working on a presentation that delineates the specific guidelines, but as they say, I'm having technical difficulties. Anyway, I hope you all have a good afternoon or evening, that you sit down and read with your child, that you take them to the library.